Hi, I'm Heidi Pettivilla. I'm the manager of customer success, the strategic sector at Responsive. Today I have with me Jackie Gaston from Carelon, and we're going to be talking about how to avoid burnout within proposal management, how to build and scale proposal management teams, and what process do you put in place to make sure it's successful. So with that, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So tell us about, you're in the proposal management sector. You've been doing it for a lot of years. Tell us about your time at Carelon and tell us a little bit about your role there.
Yeah. I've been in proposals and business development for the last 20 years. Last 14 of those spent in healthcare, managing teams, doing proposals. I am now the strategic proposal development director and business development director for Carelon. There, I manage a team that is relatively new.
So understanding that Carelon is part of that bigger Elevance organization, can you explain to us a little bit how Carelon fits into that structure? Where does it fit in? Yeah, just lay the land.
Absolutely. So Carelon is the payer-agnostic subsidiary of Elevance Health. So we are the health services piece. We sell everything from behavioral health, EAP, pharmacy, to medical benefits management, payment integrity, research, genetic testing, you name it.
Sounds like they do a lot.
Changing every day.
All right, so now that we have kind of that view and that lay of the land of how Carelon fits into Elevance, tell me a little bit about your role within that and how does that work as far as your team? You know, you came in there, brought it in fresh and new, and what does that look like from a fit within the Carelon Elevance organization?
Well, I knew what I was getting into. From the very first conversations that I'd had with my boss, I knew that I was coming into a blank canvas. There was no centralized intake. We didn't have a data management platform. The team that I was taking over was formed from multiple disparate business unit focused teams. So smaller teams that were brought together. So there was work that needed to be done to make a cohesive proposal team that could support all of the products that we sell.
It's always tough when you start with a blank screen. Sometimes it's great, right? It can end up being a paint splatter or it can be a Mona Lisa. And I think from what I understand, you've really made that into a Mona Lisa. So very impressive. All right, so I just learn more about the stories. Building the proposal function from scratch, tell us how you started that, right? So where did you look? Where did you decide to go? This is step one, kind of turning that chaos into some sort of organization within the team.
First and foremost, we needed a cross-trained team. Prior, we had multiple people who were trained on very specific products, and that didn't support the way that Carelon was moving. We needed people to be able to support cross-solution initiatives, and we needed a process that supported that. We didn't have a defined process. Every bid that we supported was a totally different way of supporting it. We needed consistent data management. We couldn't be saving documents on laptops. We couldn't be pulling data from past documents. We didn't have consistent use of data and statistics. We didn't have a source of truth. And we didn't have the technology that supported it.
Of course.
So those were really the first things that we looked at.
And that makes perfect sense. Consistency is so key, right? When you have people saving things in different places, someone's out, you can't get to it. It's just so much for that efficiency that you're going for, right? Because that goes right out the window. So having that one platform is so important. So we're so glad that you're such an advocate for us. Once you started implementing, once you landed on a responsive platform, where did you start seeing changes? Where did that kind of light come where you're like, I'm really noticing that we're seeing improvement?
I'm going to be honest, it wasn't smooth sailing. If people have been doing their work a certain way for a really long time, it's hard to change that. So we did have, some bumps in the road, but we did have some big aha moments. Just the time savings that we had in certain tedious little tasks. My team is small. I think within most industries at this point, it's do more with less. We don't have a specific production team. So we do all of our templates by hand. Cut, paste, questionnaire. That was one of the first things that my team really thought, wow, this saves us hours.
Right.
Just being able to use the template function on responsive was a big deal. Then moving into using the auto response. That was another, shaving hours off. Then moving into projects. That was huge. I think last week actually was a big, ta-da, because we had a proposal that came in that should have had 3 weeks. And for circumstances out of our control, we had about 24 hours.
That's tight turn.
Yeah.
Here we are. What do we do now?
And I think responsive plus the processes and the teamwork that we had instilled over the last 2 years really made it possible for us to turn it around. Turn a successful proposal around with some sweat, no tears, and on time. So
Awesome.
it felt good. And I think that was a big realization for me and my whole team that, things had really changed in the last 2 years because of our, the technology, the process, and the teamwork that we had put in place.
It's so nice when you have that aha moment where you're like, I know this works. I need the team to know it works. I want to have that one illustrative example where you're like, this is exactly why we did what we did. And it sounds like you did it really intentionally, the way you kind of went through with templates and, kind of stair-stepped up to the efficiency that the platform lends to you. So that's really interesting. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching have had that same experience of where do we start? Where do we start seeing improvements? So we learned that Carelon is part of the Elevance organization. And so when these conversations started with the strategic response management, how was it going to be handled? What was the process? Who was the company? You didn't have a seat at the table during that time. And when you learned that they were having these conversations and that you had a very strong will, they're responsive, which we love that. How did you get that seat at the table? Tell us a little bit about how those conversations started and how you secured your seat to make the position and the move to responsive.
So there are 7 proposal teams within Elevance, which is our parent organization. And as an enterprise, they were looking for a unified platform so that all proposal teams within the org were on one, which makes sense. We were not included in those conversations, my Carelon proposal team, because we have a platform. We're happy with it. We've had it for 2.5 years. When we got wind of these conversations happening and the potential of an RFI going out and found out the responsive wasn't part of it, alarm bells went off. And, self-servingly, big alarm bells for me went off and my team. I've been in proposal management for long enough. I've been on a lot of other platforms. I don't want to go backwards.
No. So we love hearing that. We love the cause an alarm in your head.
Yep. So we kind of elbowed our way in. And we did some demos for people and for the group that was, starting to make the short list. And we got responsive a seat at that table. And thankfully, they were included in that process. For us, it was non-negotiable. We weren't going to be part of something that was, from a technological standpoint, going backwards.
That makes perfect sense. And your partnership is so important to us. So we are very glad you got that seat at the table and got responsive the seat at the table. That is invaluable to us. So after you kind of got that seat at the table, you move forward with responsive. Then you have the task of getting buy-in from all of the different stakeholders, some of which may have been in your camp with, yeah, we can get on board with responsive. But then you have some that are potentially not in that same lane. How did you get buy-in from all of the different stakeholders that needed to be part of that decision?
Once responsive was part of that conversation, we didn't have to do a lot of work. Responsive did the work. It wasn't much of a contest. We have a wonderful customer success manager, Chris Armstrong, who has been fantastic about really helping us scale up our own product for our database and for how we use it. And responsive really demonstrated to the organization and the stakeholders that were making this decision that not only is it the right database and platform for Elevance and all of its proposal teams now, but in the future. My team used our instance as an demo for AI. And that really, I think, was a turning point, because against competitors, the AI that is out there now and responsives AI is, head and tails above the rest, and just the capabilities that are in the pipeline going forward are so much better.
That's awesome. And a couple things on that. Thank you so much for recognizing Chris. He is an invaluable part of our CS team, and we love to hear how strong the partnership is and how he really advocated with you, for you, to get Responsive brought on. So certainly big shout out to Chris. We love to hear that. And then secondly, really recognizing that AI innovation, right? Where we're going, where we've been, and kind of where we're headed. And you're in lockstep with us on that. And that's so important that you understand from, that side of the partnership, how impactful it is to your efficiency, and what does that look like from an impactful efficiency, time saved, ROI impact. So thank you for recognizing that as well. Is your team bought in on the AI, or are they still kind of questioning? Because sometimes we see that who moved my cheese scenario.
We've bought in. I think it's a 2026 implementation for us, just because we're scaling. It is definitely, we've tried it. We really like it. It's just in our implementation timeline. We're excited. I think it's going to be a Q1.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go a little slow to go faster, right? It's like crawl, walk, run, run, crawl, walk. So as we're kind of talking through, your team, small but mighty, proposal management can take an emotional toll. It can take it on, any side of the proposal that you're sitting on. How do you manage that within your team? How do you protect your team from kind of that burnout, if you will, as well as protecting the performance? And really, if you could focus on having more volume within your team and potentially less resources, if you could share how you succeed at managing that, that would be great.
It's all about process, teamwork, and technology. So having the right fusion of those three things. We staff very differently than a lot of proposal teams. There's a lot of collaboration that goes into it. We use Responsive as the backbone of that, because we can get SME buy-in, and we can get subject matter experts and sales and other stakeholders into the tool, working side by side with our proposal managers and our writers. And then it's easy for us to content capture that so that it's instantaneous. There's not a lag in pulling in new content, so that if we're working on 3 proposals within the same content area, that there isn't a month lag of new content coming in. So it's really those things, as opposed to putting one proposal manager on a big deal because they're the best, or they know that product by like the back of their hand.
Right.
I might put 3 and then peel some off. So it's really working together and having that cross-trained staff, as well as, having the right tools in place.
So important. Sometimes that one person can be that one point of success, but they can also be that one point of failure, right? Where you're not expecting them to be hot for a month for some reason. You're like, oh no. So I think the cross-functional and really making sure that it's scaled across the team is so important. So I know that, that's what's made you successful. I'm sure a lot of people watching this have had that same exact situation and scenario. So, we've covered a lot today. Thank you so much for taking the time. Your insight, sharing your stories is so valuable to, everybody within the industry on both sides of the proposal fence. So if you could give 3 pieces of advice to somebody that is starting within the proposal management sector or building a team within that sector, what are those 3 pieces of valuable advice that you would share with them?
Define and refine the right process. Make it repeatable. Put the right pieces in place that you can repeat it. Put the right technology in place to support it. And get the right people, the right proposal team members that are nimble, that are collaborative, that work well together. And within that can get the right buy-in. Can get the buy-in from sales, from SMEs, from senior leadership. The goal in proposals, or as I see it, is to work smarter. Not work longer, not work harder. I don't want to see people working 80 hours. I don't want to see you online on a Sunday night. You know, weekends are for fun.
Agreed. I am all in on that one. We know we all have to work weekend here and there, but I am totally bought in on that. So it sounds like it's the 3 Ps, right? People, process, platform.
Absolutely.
And then with that will come the buy-in that you need to achieve.
Totally.
From the stakeholders. And that's that. Easy. 3 Ps. That's all you need to remember. Perfect. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for taking time and spending it with us today and sharing your story and sharing your success and how other people that are watching might be able to scale some of your tips and tricks to create success for themselves.